President Trump says he's open to the possibility of adding music mogul Sean Diddy Combs to his list of pardon recipients. Combs is currently on trial on sex trafficking and racketeering charges.
He used to really like me a lot, but I think when I ran for politics, that relationship busted up from what I read. I don't know. He didn't tell me that, but I'd read some little bit nasty statements in the paper all of a sudden. It's not a popularity contest. So I don't know. I would certainly look at the facts. If I think somebody was mistreated, whether they like me or don't like me, it wouldn't have any impact.
Joining me now, Omarosa Manigault Newman, former star of The Apprentice, former communications director for the Office of Public Liaison in the first Trump White House, and author, of course, of the best-selling book, Unhinged, an insider's account of the Trump White House. I'm going to offer you congratulations in just a second, but Sean Diddy Combs, really? Have you been following this trial and how really just awful on so many levels it is?
Hey, Alex, look, I'm not surprised because remember, Donald Trump is not just the president of the United States, but he's the producer of the United States. He thinks that he's still operating as a producer in reality TV. He's going after headlines, shock and awe. But if you look really deeply at these allegations against Sean Combs, I think that he would be more reluctant about proactively offering a pardon.
Do you detect a whimsical element at all to him doing this, these pardon decisions? I mean, they just kind of, it's hard to understand the reasons and being concrete at the root of them.
Well, I think that in the first administration, he really waited too late to use his pardon power effectively. And so I can see that now he's going to leverage it. Anytime he wants to change the news cycle, get some headlines, get some attention, he'll just throw out a shocking pardon like what he did with the Chrisleys this week. I mean, that's all everyone talked about. So, yes, he's going to leverage that clemency power that he has a little more this time than he did in the first administration.
You know, you mentioned the Chrisleys. Let's hear from Trump's pardon czar and one of the stars of the Chrisleys after the release. Here it is.
Yeah.
They call them the Trumps of Georgia, but they were certainly over a sentence. I know that they're going to use their voices and their platform to uplift the president's agenda.
Even though this pardon has happened, I still was convicted of something that I did not do. Do I have any remorse? I would have remorse if it was something that I did.
Okay, so earlier we heard Trump say it doesn't matter whether the recipients like him or not, but this is a life-changing gift. And wouldn't you expect those pardoned to be fierce advocates for Trump, maybe for the rest of their lives?
Well, his daughter is actually a very fierce advocate for Donald Trump, and she is very proudly a member of MAGA. And she's the one that went to Mar-a-Lago and advocated for her parents to receive this pardon. So he did get the praise and the admiration that he wanted in exchange for this pardon from his daughter.
There's a new Atlantic article in which Ashley Parker and Jonathan Lemire write that Trump at one point sought a summit with Russian President Putin that could turn into a made-for-TV moment to announce the end of the war and a long-coveted Nobel Peace Prize for himself. They add that John Bolton told them Trump really wants a Nobel Peace Prize. He'll take it for Ukraine, he'll take it for Gaza, he'll take it for Pakistan, India. He's not particular. That's Bolton's quote there. Did you, Omarosa, ever hear him say that he wants a Nobel Peace Prize while you were in the White House? Does any of this sound plausible to you?
I don't think Donald wanted a peace prize until Barack Obama received one. And then he wouldn't stop talking about it. Barack Obama received one very early on in his presidency. And Donald believes that he has, in fact, earned the right to get a Nobel Peace Prize. And his followers believe that his work with the Taliban, negotiating the Taliban, the Abraham Accord, his attempts with North Korea have certainly earned him the right to put a Nobel Peace Prize on his mantle. But he's going to have to do a little bit more to earn that honor, in my opinion.
Yeah. I also want to get your thoughts on some of Trump's and his family's business investments in this second term. Ivanka and Jared, they are no longer in the White House, but you have Eric Trump and Don Jr., who accompanied Vice President J.D. Vance at Bitcoin's biggest conference in Las Vegas this week. The Trump sons have also announced plans to buy $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. What do you think of Trump loosening government oversight and regulations around cryptocurrency while wading into his own crypto projects?
You know, there is no limit to this grift. I mean, watching what Don and Eric are doing in the crypto space, I mean, it's just, after we heard so much and their complaints about Hunter Biden and how Hunter leveraged his father's presidency to make all of this money, we see that they're not reluctant in any way to utilize and leverage their father's presidency to put more money in their pocket. That's what you're seeing, is this major grift on their behalf, and they are completely erasing the boundaries that traditionally were set for families and what they did while parents were in the Oval Office. You're going to see more of this. Remember, we're only about 6 months into the Trump presidency.
I know. That dawned on me earlier this week. I said, oh boy. Could it be that Trump's interpretation of presidential immunity that was given to him from last year's Supreme Court decision might be playing a role in some of his personal business decisions? Again, personal business decisions, but presidential immunity extends in his mind?
You know, what I've seen with Donald since that decision has come down is that he's just tearing apart what we traditionally saw presidents do while they're in the Oval Office. Donald Trump wants to leave the Oval Office wealthier than when he came in, and that means that he is going to strike deals that most presidents would never even think about, that he is going to blur lines that presidents have never done, but more importantly, he's going to utilize that idea of immunity to do whatever it is that he wants because he believes that he's not accountable to anyone.
Okay, well, with my thanks come my congratulations. You just graduated. You have an MBA and law degree now. I mean, you go, girl. That is so amazing. I'm so impressed. I mean, well done.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, I may have to call you up one day and say, hey, I need some help. Anyway, Omarosa, thank you so much. Coming up next.